thank you for joining me. Now, questions that I get asked on a regular basis are: what glue do you use? What wood do you use? And what do you use to cut wood? So in today's video, I'm going to be answering those questions and also sharing with you some of the other products and tools that I like to use. So let's get started. So the glue I like to use is Gorilla Wood Glue, and this also works really well with paper and fabric, and you can also use it for attaching your metal handles to your wooden pieces. And one of the reasons why I really like this one is because it grabs really quickly, so you can move on to the next stage of your project without having to wait for ages for the glue to dry. And then it's set within 20 to 30 minutes if you're using clamps or masking tape, and fully cured within 24 hours. But if you're working on a project, you can finish your project, so apply paint or varnish within an hour or so. The glue comes in different sizes, so this is the 532 millilitres, which I think is the largest. And then you've got the 236, which I have here, and then I think they do 118 millilitres as well, which is half the size of this. So if you wanted just to give it a go, you could start off with the smaller bottle, but I can really recommend this one. Now, unfortunately, I don't sell this in the Etsy shop just because I'm unable to send glue through the post, but do take a look at the Gorilla website or places like Amazon. The craft wood I like to use is called a bishi, and I'll pop the spelling of that at the bottom of the screen. And it comes in sheet wood and strip wood, and there are various different thicknesses. The ones I use most frequently are the 0.8mm thick, which is 1/32 of an inch, 1.5mm or 1/16 of an inch, 2.5mm, 3/32 of an inch, and the 3mm, which is 1/8 of an inch. And then they do a range of thicknesses in the strips as well, so 1.5 square, 3mm square, 3x6 and 5x5. They also do a narrower sheet wood, which is just 75mm wide or 3 inches, as opposed to the 100mm or 4-inch widths. So bishi isn't one of the best quality craft woods that you can buy, but it is very good value for money. And if you sand the wood well at each stage of your project, you'll find that you get a really nice finish on it, and it's really robust as well. So if I just hold a piece up there to the screen, you can see that it's a nice sort of pale yellow colour, and obviously that will differ from sheet to sheet, because wood is a natural product, so you are going to get differences in the colour, but only very slight, and also differences in the grain of the wood. But as you can see here, the grain is quite pronounced, and it has a medium to coarse texture with a good natural lustre. If I hold it out into the light there, you can see the lustre on it. And that's what contributes to a really good paint or varnish finish, as long as you sand your wood, as I said earlier. Now, it's very difficult to show you, obviously on camera, the hardness of the wood. But if I just explain it to you by explaining the janker rating of the wood. Now, a janker rating is something that's given to all wood types, and it's basically the pounds force it takes to embed a steel ball into the wood, or how many pounds force it takes to dent the wood. So if I tell you that a bishi has a janker rating of 430 pounds force, that probably doesn't mean much to you. But then if I tell you that balsa wood has a janker rating of just 67, and something like mahogany would have a janker rating of 850, you can see that a bishi is very much in the middle, and you need to go for something that's sort of that middle rating, otherwise you're going to find it extremely hard to cut using hand tools. And then just to go completely to the other end of the scale, one of the strongest and hardest woods is oak, and that has a janker rating of 1,350. So I know I'm being a bit scientific there, and you might find that a little bit boring. I actually think it's really interesting, but it just sort of goes to show what sort of hardness this wood has. Now I find it very easy to cut with a craft knife, even up to the 3mm thickness, but I wouldn't be able to cut the 5mm thickness with a craft knife. For that you would need to use power tools, and obviously depending upon your hand strength you may find the 3mm is a little bit more difficult to cut, and if that's the case then you may need to look for a craft wood that has a lower janker rating. Although having said that, I don't recommend balsa wood for making doll's house furniture. It's really great for some projects and I use it for the odd bits and pieces, but I wouldn't actually use it for making furniture as I don't think it's sturdy enough. And also because it's got a very open grain, it doesn't finish very nicely either. And you'll find the whole range of Abishi sheetwood and stripwood for sale in my Etsy shop. And you'll find a link to the shop in the description box below. But I'll just pop the name here so that you can just pop over and do a search if that's easier. You'll also find a range of basswood and walnut in a couple of thicknesses. And you can find details on all types of wood and their janker ratings over on the Wood Database website. So on to my favourite craft knife, and this is the Swan Morton retractable blade craft knife, and that just means that the blade slots back into the handle like that. Now there are various blades that fit with this handle in a variety of shapes and sizes depending upon what project you're working on, but I like to use the 10A blade, which is this one I've got fixed into the knife here, and I just find this knife really easy to use. Now I've probably had this particular knife for around 10 years and it's lasted really well. The previous knife I'd probably had, I don't know, for around 15 years, and what actually happened in the end was that the part that holds the blade into place actually snapped. But if you think that's after 15 years worth of continuous use, I think that's pretty good going. So these are nice, strong, sturdy, robust knives. Fits nicely into the hand, and the blade is in there firmly, so as you're cutting the blade doesn't move around. And with some knives that I've tried out, I actually find that the blade does actually move around as you're using it. So I like this one because the blade just stays solid, and when you sort of click it into that central position, it stays there. The replacement blades come in packs of 5 and in these sort of little safety packets, and the blades are really easy to change as well, and I'm going to show you how I do that now. So just to start by saying, you always want to be super careful when you're doing anything using a blade, whether you're actually using the knife to cut or you're changing the blade. So just really pay attention to what you're doing. So extend the knife fully out like that, and then I use my pliers to remove the blade. So I get a good firm hold of it along one edge like that. Lift it slightly to get it over the slotted area that the blade fits around, and then pull forwards like that. So keep a good tight hold of your knife handle and a good tight hold onto the blade. Pop that down like that. Take out your new blade. Make sure you don't actually handle the sharp part of the blade. And then I just pop it over. So I just take that off and just show you what that looks like actually without the blade on. So you've just got that sort of little slot there at the front, or little raised area with a slot at the top, and then you've got the hole in the centre of the blade, so that just sort of slots around that. So I just sort of put it a half on like that, and then I use my pliers to push it onto the knife until it clicks. And then straight away put the blade away, so close the knife down fully. With the old blade, I put it into the paper packet that the new ones just come out of, fold it around, again being really careful, and then I wrap that around with masking tape. And then dispose of that, but anybody emptying the bin isn't then going to get a nasty shock by getting stabbed by the blade. So the Swan Morton craft knife is also available in my Etsy shop, and it comes in a blister pack with a pack of 5 replacement blades. Now Etsy has some rules about sending sharp objects to certain parts of certain countries, so if you find the knife in the shop but you're unable to add it into your basket, it's probably because there's a rule that they can't be shipped to your particular country or to your particular part of your country. So in that case I would recommend that you look a little bit closer to home if you're outside of the UK. And I'm sure Swan Morton is an international company, so I'm sure you'd be able to find one of these, even perhaps on Amazon in your country. But please do take a look in my Etsy shop first. So the paint I like to use for my miniature projects is a normal household emulsion, and I buy it in these little sample pots. Now these are probably £1 to £2 from your local DIY store, and obviously there's a whole variety of colours that you can buy. So these little pots come with a brush already inside. I'm sure you've all seen them before, but I don't ever use that brush. Always just take the lid off and pop that to one side and then use your smaller brushes. The ones that come with the little rollers, I always remove the roller, which is really easy to do, and then actually just dispense some of the paint into a separate little pot. You can then just put the little piece of foil back over and put the lid back on, and that will keep nicely. And then obviously the tubes, you would also need to dispense some into a little pot. Now I also keep any remnants of emulsion paint that we use around the house, and I've got a few larger tins sitting in my cupboard, and I've used that for furniture and for the walls in my doll's house. So always keep hold of any leftover paint. But I would say that if you're doing a large project, perhaps you're having a doll's house where you're doing all of the furniture white or something like that, it might be worth investing in a larger tin because you're going to need lots of little sample pots. So just have a think about the price there. Now I know that this sort of paint isn't called emulsion in all countries, but it is just the paint that you would use on the walls of your house. So a water-based paint for walls and ceilings. Another product I love to use for finishing my pieces is Rustin's wood dye. As you can see here, it comes in a wide range of colours, and each of the colours can be mixed to create even more shades. And over on my Patreon channel I did a really nice episode of Tea Biscuits and Doll's House Chatter where I looked at all of these shades and tested them all out, and I particularly like that they even do a white, and that creates a really nice finish on wood. Now I actually prefer this to using wood varnish. I find that this is easier to apply, it dries a lot quicker, and I think as well you actually get a better finish. And then if you want the gloss on it or a sheen, you can apply a clear varnish over the top, or as I sometimes do, apply a clear wax to create that lovely sheen. Now I really like this Rustin's wood dye, but obviously there are other makes, so depending upon where you are in the world, just look out for a wood dye. And this one is an interior and exterior one, not sort of specific to crafts. And again, a tin, which is 250 millilitres, lasts for a long time. I've recently bought one of each of the colours, but some that I've had for quite a while, maybe sort of 3 or 4 years, and dark oak is one that I use quite frequently. So again, they do last for a long time because you really don't need to apply too much. And the wood dye can be applied with either a paintbrush or a piece of cloth, and you can apply just one coat if you wish, or more if you want a richer, darker finish. So moving on from wood dye to wood filler, and this is a Ronseal smooth finish filler. Now with this, it's not so much about the make, but if you're choosing a wood filler, then choose one that is called smooth finish or fine finish or something like that, and this is really good for doll's house projects. So just to show you the consistency there, how fine it is. And it's really easy to apply into small gaps, whether that's actually in your doll's house for your skirting or coving or your actual sort of wooden fittings, or on a piece of furniture. And because it's so fine, it dries really quickly and you don't have to do too much sanding afterwards. I remember sort of one I'd used previously, it took so long to dry and then you were forever sanding it. It had sort of dried almost like concrete and was really difficult to remove. But this is easy to sand and gives a really nice finish. So always look out for a filler that is called a smooth finish or a fine finish filler. Another of my favourite glues is the Deluxe Materials Glue and Glaze, and if you've ever watched any of my videos where I've been fitting acetate into windows or glazed doors for furniture, then you'll have seen me use this. A little goes a long way. It's really easy to apply, and when it dries it doesn't fog the acetate. And again, I think this is the second bottle that I've bought, and this was bought fairly recently, but the one I had previously lasted me for many years. So again, another really good investment. So I want to end today by sharing with you probably my second favourite tool, and certainly second most used after my Swan Morton craft knife, and that is this handheld mitre guillotine. And this is excellent at cutting strip wood and cutting angles into strip wood. It's super easy to use, and I'm just going to demonstrate here on a couple of pieces of strip wood, and this is the 5x5, so 13/64 of an inch. So you just put it into the angle, and you can cut it straight if you wish. You would just move the little clip here, pop it under the cutter like that, and cut. And that is so easy. I've used other guillotines and they don't cut the 5x5 strip as easy as this one does. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this tool in this video, as I have actually done a separate video just about the guillotine, and I'll link to that at the end of this video. But also just to say that these are available in my Etsy shop along with the spare blades. Okay, so that's it for today, and I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know if any of the tools or products I've spoken about today are your favourites as well, and if not, let me know what you like to use. Okay, so I'll be back soon with another video. Until then, take care. Bye!